Trials Training Days at the Trials Training Center in Sequatchie, Tennessee. This is going to be my review from 2022 and why I think you should go as well. I'm going to try and summarize my weekend, which is tough. There was so much great information, so many awesome experiences, but honestly, I would compare this somewhat to the best instructors, the most eager students, and the best terrain for anyone to go ride on. It reminded me a little bit of college, where you get to choose what classes you want to take, and it's your responsibility to get to those locations. So this is the agenda here again, and you've got to cruise around the campus and find the location where you're going to be learning from a specific instructor. And those sessions were 1:15 each. A lot of the fun came before and after class, just like at college. It's that free time with friends that makes things so memorable, but we'll get to more of that later. For now, here's an example of the first session with Ray Peters.
If you lift late, you have to lift fast to clear the top of the obstacle. That results usually in an overshoot where the bike goes very steep.
Now, for the purpose of this video, I'm not going to show you all the different things I learned in these classes. I've got an entire playlist dedicated to the experience I had at the Trials Training Center with each of these techniques broken down. But you guys get the idea. An instructor telling you what to do, then there's going to be a demonstration by some pro rider who can really show you what good looks like. And then you're going to get a chance for hands-on learning. And it's that hands-on that they did such a good job with. This particular class had a lot of people. I'm going to say around 25 to 30 individuals, but they broke it up. So after the first time through, they sent the beginners who still needed practice to stay on that log and the more advanced people to continue moving forward. And that's the key. They split the class up, I think, 3 times in order to have smaller groups with more personalized instruction on the exact size obstacle that is comfortable for you, or maybe something just outside of your comfort zone. But that's the key, is finding that skill window where your skills meet up with the challenges that you're facing with other riders so that you can progress. And that's what I loved. So as you can see, we're moving on to a bigger rock face. This was in the class basic ledges, but they progressed us up. Even after doing this challenging slick face, we moved on to, hey, what about the next ledge? What if there's 2 ledges or back-to-back steps? How do you move forward and continue to grow in your skill in each of these classes? This was an eager student's dream. Now, this class on finding traction taught by Ron Lee, I probably got the most out of. It just seemed like the guy was downloading years and years of wisdom onto us. It was super helpful to be able to learn how to climb up this rock face and continue to find traction. Here, Jesse is actually showing us how not to do it, which is a good example. It's sometimes when you're with a group of riders and you see someone not be successful, and then you go, okay, that's what I don't want to do. And then you see someone who you think they're not that great of a rider, but they go right up a ledge and you're like, if Joey can do it, I can do it too. And it gives you confidence. And then you get through and they're cheering at you going, great job, or good ride. Sometimes they'd even yell, perfect. It's that validation that really escalates the learning process. You want to hear that instructor yell, perfect. And so you're striving for that and you're watching everyone else's body mechanics and then internalizing it for yourself. I'm a visual learner, and so seeing what success looked like was super helpful to me, and also seeing what doesn't look right. And then I go, oh, he didn't have enough momentum, or whatever the case may be. So after this class, my buddy Ron and I went back over to this area and said, oh, let's try these ledges again. So here you can see him going not only up, but also down in a nice executed fashion. I had a lot of trouble making the turn at the top of this in order to come back down squared to the rock face, and unfortunately it didn't go that well, as you can see. Now that tumble actually brings me to a nice point, because one of the neat things about riding with a group like this is that they're really good spotters. So whenever we were trying things that were more advanced, like zaps up a rock face or splats, they had spotters there that knew how to catch the bike. And that gives you an extreme amount of comfort to say, okay, if I can't make this, somebody's there to help me. And it's in that environment that you're willing to try things. You're willing to move into a situation that maybe at home by yourself, you know, I don't have any business trying this. But in that environment, you're willing to go for it. So that's again where the learning just seemed to accelerate, at least for me and many others, because that group of people all traveling together really does get further. You may have heard that a rising tide lifts all boats. Well, when there's great instruction and everyone's going after it, you're naturally going to jump into things and progress in your skills, which is what this weekend was all about. So having that foundation skill really enabled me to after class again say, hey Ron, let's go splat on this other rock that I found that's a lot more grippy. The runway's a little cleaner, it's a little easier to build a kicker in front of it. And so here we go again, trying out the skills that we learned in class and just having an absolute blast. You know, being in an environment where you're with like-minded people and are all going after progression, there's just something magical that happens. So it was one night after the Zaps class that I felt like, man, I just did not get that. The hour 15 wasn't enough time for me to really digest it, and I felt like I'd almost regressed in some way. So Ron and I went over to this playground area, and I wound up meeting young Ryan Land, who was zapping up this log with no problem. And his style, his technique was different. Those instructors were doing a shorter run-up. It wasn't like a big first wheelie into the obstacle, and I said, I want to learn this. And so this 12-year-old said, well, I'll teach you. So graciously, this is the one-on-one instruction that I probably got the most out of in the entire weekend. Yes, the classes were super helpful, but it was taking that information, digesting it, and then going to try and practice it, and maybe finding another instructor. And so many of them said, I'll be around all weekend if you have any more questions. All of the instructors and your other classmates were willing to help you. The trials community is such a humble, helpful community. I just can't get enough of it. And so when you combine 140 riders and probably 30 instructors in front of a national that was going to be taking place later that week, this environment was just electric. So if I had to say the three most important things I learned that weekend are turns, timing, and RPM. Honestly, the dabs that you take in an event are almost always related to turns. And working on balance and proper form in the turns, especially on cambers and slick conditions when you're losing traction, that's what trials is all about. It's not just these big obstacles, although those are fun. And so I'm not going to discredit the fact that I had an absolute blast working through the zaps with Ryan Land and working through splats and just experiencing the thrill of having 250 cc's just rev out and let out that clutch. That is something that takes time to get comfortable with. I was accurately diagnosed by my friend Ron with having RPM anxiety, but I'm working on it. Trials training days was an absolute blast, and I think a lot of it had to do with how much effort I put into things. I was outgoing, I was asking questions, I was eager to learn, and so you're going to get out of it a lot of what you put into it. Great friends were made. This is a place that is very helpful. I highly encourage anyone who can get to the Trials Training Center in Tennessee to give it a check out. They do this training days once a year, but they've got other classes and instructions that take place throughout the year. So if you head on over to the trialstrainingcenter.com website, you guys are going to find a lot of great information. This is an awesome resource, and I'm going to be focused in on the Trials Training days. You can see here some of the things that we're learning and the instructors that were planned for that time. Now, you're going to get a different flavor every time you go because you're getting different instructors at the different classes, and you can take multiple different classes. This is an agenda of what you do. There's basically 2 sessions before lunch, 2 sessions after for 2 full days of riding, and that's all for $150 with all the culmination of different people that were there, different instructors, different versions of ways to learn things. I really got a lot out of this. Head on over to their website to see all the different information about lodging. They've got cabins, you can bring your RVs, you can stay at nearby hotels. It's a great location for everything trials. And this Trials Training Center also has amazing resources. They've put together articles on all the different techniques, even PDF downloads where you guys can download how to do certain techniques if you like to read about it. And if you're not as much of a reader and you want to check out YouTube, they've got a great YouTube channel with some good resources. They've broken down playlists by instructors so you can see exactly the different techniques that they're training. And they also have a Facebook page where you guys can see the different events that are coming, different people's responses. Sometimes they go live. So at the Trials Training Days recently, they put up some live, especially of the contest, the nose wheelies, the tricks that people were doing. Great resource. Really enjoy what these guys are doing.